12 o'clock on your Friday afternoon now. Welcome in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you. Terry Ford, we had a good run. For a couple days, Terry Ford was on time. He had to be on time yesterday because I was not at the Nest to start the show, so we had to actually start the show on time. But we had a good run, but Terry is once again late today, so we'll get him here in a couple minutes. Appreciate everybody over the Nest, by the way, for having us out there yesterday. Great time, as my first time over there, but I know Terry's been out there several times, and always gracious to be out there and have a good time. Get some great food as well. That contrary to what he said, Terry did not cook it. No, it was folks over the Nest that cooked that food, some great street tacos that we enjoy. Got to pet their dog Birdie. It was great. So great time. Appreciate everybody over there at the Nest for letting us hang out. Coming to the end of the week, I don't know. It's weird, right? When you go into the first weekend of the year without a full list of sports things going on. Because at least going into last weekend, you still had a Game 7 of the NBA Finals. You still had the College World Series coming to an end. I'm watching the, I guess this is the championship ceremony for LSU on the SEC Network as of right now. But you had a couple of those kind of tentpole type events going on in the sports world last weekend that once those things come to an end, it's kind of like, okay, now what? Obviously, Major League Baseball continuing on. You got WNBA happening. But in terms of high-level, high-stakes sports things happening this weekend, not really the case. And really, until you kind of get into football, that's not going to be the case. As again, kind of got dog days of summer when it comes to baseball and divisional races. They'll start to heat up as you get into the months of August and September. But again, the championship level stuff is cooled off for a little bit. So, if there was ever a time to, I guess, start seeing some movies or doing some things around the house or going on family vacation, you're finally hitting that point in the summer where you're not as afraid to miss things, I guess, in the sports world for a day or two.
Here's the problem. This is the time of year. Again, depends on what market you live in, right?
That's true.
In some of my other lives, I worked in baseball markets.
Yes.
Where you had Major League Baseball. So you're still rocking and rolling, right?
Well, I say, and you covered the Orioles. There's been some ups and downs. Mm-hmm. Is there anything worse than being in a baseball market with a bad team in the middle of July?
It sucks. It's miserable, especially if you're the flagship.
Yeah, because you're like, all right, well. They lost again last night.
I put lipstick on this pig today.
They are now 13 games back in the division.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's like
they win the next 30 games in a row, they'll be in good shape.
There's always a chance.
Here's
the one thing about it. It's even worse when you're in a market with a bad baseball team. You're the flagship, and the baseball team tries to, how can I put this, in a nice way, form your narrative to make to every you can't be so hard on the team. Well, tell them not to suck.
It's like, hey,
what do you want me to do?
Last time I checked, you guys are 40 games under 500. What do you want me to say?
I tell you, I had it in the dog days of the Orioles, and the Orioles again this year are maybe the most underachieving team in the major leagues because they played in the playoffs the last 2 years.
Sure,
but they had some dark years, and we were the flagship one year, and it's a while back. And just they were terrible. And, what do? I go on the air. I mean, I'm not being mean. I'm just, it's terrible.
You're reacting to what you saw.
Yes. And our VP of programming comes to me. He's like, Ter, you got to take it easy on the boys. I said, dude, tell the boys not to suck. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
What, ready? And we got one hit. But what a great one hit that was.
That's the thing where you put a positive spin on negative things. It's like, wow, out of all the teams that lost by 7 runs last night, they're the best ones to do it.
Ready?
You know what I mean?
Our Orioles are the best 100-loss team in the majors.
It's like, I know the starting pitcher gave up 8 runs in 2 1/3 inning. But, man, he looked good in that uniform, didn't he?
I'm ready. Those 2 outs?
Those 2 outs, man. How about that?
If he could get more of those, we got something.
The one strikeout he had was perfect.
Or my other favorite one, this goes to sports in general, but I love it with pitching. Take away those 17 hits he gave up, you threw a no-hitter.
Well, you can't take those away because those happen. But if you did, theoretically, if you took away the part where they hit and scored runs on him, he would have had a great outing.
That's always what I loved about pitchers. Pitchers, there's no bigger excuse machine than pitching.
Quarterback a little bit in the same way. Well, if you take the turnovers away, well, he turned the ball over. I can't take them away. What do you mean?
My favorite pitcher would be post-game, and you get the starter, So there you go. You got the media schlub all around the guy, and you get the starter going. You gave up 9 runs in 2 1/3 innings. I thought I threw it well today. They just, they had a couple of C&I singles, a couple of flares that fell, they hit in really good luck, and I pitched in bad luck. Dude, you gave up 5 home runs.
Yeah.
Well, besides those 5 balls with exit velocity of 245 miles an hour.
The wind was blowing out today. That was the problem.
That's my favorite college baseball, is the wind.
The wind.
The wind is my favorite college baseball, man. When we were pitching, that wind was blowing out.
Yeah.
As soon as our guys came up, that wind started blowing in.
Yeah. Well, like in the Humpty Dome, they used to change the AC for the Twins, depending on if they were in the field or. My dad still hasn't gotten over that, by the way, for the series back in '91. He's like, they were manipulating the air in there.
That changed everything. When Kirby Puckett hit that home run off of Charlie Lee Brandt.
Yep. Oh, it's blowing out,
baby.
It's blowing out.
AC was blowing out.
That's why baseball should never be played indoors.
Exactly. No, I always enjoy the dog days of baseball when you start to get all that stuff comes out.
Yep.
And again, if you're in a baseball market,
sure, that's
the way it goes. But if you're not, like you were talking about a little while ago, now you're, especially for sports talk, the best I always joke about this kind of sort of like when sports is going for most of the year, you go. Like your wife, girlfriend, husband, whoever, boyfriend will go, like especially with like women and because like my girlfriend, hey, let's go to Pier 1. And I'd love to go to Pier 1 with you and look at wicker chairs.
Yeah.
But I got to watch this game. Or Joanne Fabric. Oh, Michaels. I would love to go look at frames with you.
I will say this: the DVR has been a great invention. Because if you are in one of those situations where you do have to be somewhere, at least you can go back and watch the game later.
Here's the thing, though, Tyler, it's the excuse where you don't have to go.
That is true. That does help a lot.
I watch this game.
This is the point in the year where I have to do kind of pre-warn my wife about the football season that's coming because she'll talk about, hey, this thing's happening on this October Saturday. I'm like, got a home game that day. Going to be a little bit tied up. Like, it's that reminder of like, hey, we got to get this stuff out of the way before, the end of August because when that comes – my weekend's kind of locked down then. Yeah.
So, it is that time of year, though, where guys in our business who can use our business as an excuse.
Sure.
I guess where you're at. You're Joanne Fabric and Pier 1 and Michaels, and you're standing around pretending you're invested. My girlfriend's a frame freak for pictures.
Okay.
Like, she will go look at every frame in the store, and then she'll look at me. What do you think? I think I want to take that frame and stick it in my eye sockets. Is what I think right now.
How much collective time have you ever spent deciding on a frame for something?
For myself?
For yourself.
6 seconds.
It's usually like the first one, looks good enough.
Ready? It's rectangular or whatever.
It's the same thing with like buying cards, right? Like a birthday card, a Christmas card, whatever it may be. I go to the store and I usually pick up no more than 2, right? Like, all right, hey, that one's funny. Or I may see another one, Lori, that one too. Okay, between the 2, this one. Like, I spend maybe all of 30 seconds deciding on cards.
I don't stand in front of the cards.
I'm not there, like, with the armful, like, going through them. Like, no, I can usually figure it out pretty quick. I always go funny, too. Any card I give is going to have some kind of humor to it.
Yep.
So I'm like, that's funny. They'll get that.
I'm the same way. I always want to go funny, except, like, for condolences, obviously.
Yeah, maybe not for those. Maybe not for those.
But no, I usually always lean to funny.
Yes.
I really do. So I'm like you. If I find one, that's pretty funny, I'm getting it.
Yes.
I used to, back in the day, before political correctness has run us over, I used to, for Christmas, go get Christmas cards for the people I worked with at Spencer's.
Yeah.
Because the Spencer's cards used to be phenomenal.
Well, if you've ever been to Spencer's and you see the kind of things they sell there, I can only imagine what a Christmas card from Spencer's would look like. The Christmas cards from
Spencer's were phenomenal.
They do. I think they still sell cards there.
I haven't been in a Spencer's to buy cards in forever because, again, in the world we live in now, you have to be careful what you do. Yeah.
Spencer's is something that I feel like is funner when you're like in high school and you're not supposed to be in there.
I will tell you, and Ed Berg will shake his head on the Spencer's used to have the back posters, and it was like really, and you're a teenager.
Yeah.
Really hot girls in bikinis that were stars. Like you get, pick a star. From any decade.
Sure.
And I'll be like before my time, there was the Farrah Fawcett posters.
Yes.
I've got them.
That went big, like Ed shaking his head 100 ways. Or Suzanne Summers posters.
Yes.
And they would be in the back of Spencer's, and you see all these like excited teenage boys looking at the posters.
Yeah, they're just standing there with their mouths open, drooling on the floor.
And you got the 40-some-year-old guy that's kind of creepy standing around the teenage boys looking at the posters. It's a little weird. A little weird. And maybe that's why I don't go into Spencer's anymore.
Yeah, because then you'd be that guy. Like, who's the old guy?
Who's that weird dude by the posters? That's like the guy at Chuck E. Cheese with no kids.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
Yeah, I like the pizza. Yeah, sure.
I think some of the fun in Spencer's is like, again, when you're that age where you're not supposed to be in there, like, oh, my parents would kill me if I was in here.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you're like 30 and you're going in there, you're like, yeah, this is fun for like 5 minutes,
Yeah,
and then
that's
we can go on to something else.
It's true. I mean, that stuff that was really cool when you were like 16. You're standing there at 36 going, not as much. Not as much. But yeah, Spencer's where I used to get my Christmas cards.
Yes.
You know, they were a thing.
Yeah.
Spencer's cards were a thing.
Oh, I can only imagine the.
Absolutely.
You make sure you was far away from HR when you gave them out as possible.
Well, see, back then you didn't have HR. You didn't really have HR departments. It was like the office manager was / the HR representative.
And they would even laugh at me like, hey, don't do it again. But that was funny.
Yeah, that was really funny. Like putting the fake poop in people's seats. Not next year. This year that was funny. Not next year.
Not next year.
Another great Spencer's item, if Ed Bird remembers, the fake poop. Looked real.
Yeah.
Just saying. Had a lot of fun with that in the office around Christmas.
I'm sure you did.
We won't even go into the mistletoes we can't discuss anymore, right?
I was going to say, I think we've come to the point where you're going to indict yourself on something.
Time to go to break. Anyway, Lamont Paris was on hanging out with Jay and Elijah on the postgame show yesterday. And really, and Lamont really talking about Colin Murray-Boyles getting drafted in the NBA lottery. But some other things that were interesting regarding Colin Murray-Boyles as well when it comes to the South Carolina basketball program. So we will hear from Gamecocks men's head coach Lamont Paris next, talking about Colin Murray-Boyles. Just got a bunch of different things about CMB as he now moves on from the Gamecock basketball program to the NBA in Toronto. By the way, the Grand Poobah of the organization left today.
Yeah, we talked about that. That broke this morning when Jack and I were on the air.
Yep. So we'll get to that coming back. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Hey, look, Kale's back. Ed Bird's here. We go to 3 on the game. All right, we are hanging halftime show here on the game. We were talking about Lamont Paris on with Jay and Elijah yesterday on the post-game show. And Lamont was asked about, Colin Murray-Boyles getting drafted by the Raptors. Let's get cut 5 in here, Ed. Colin Murray-Boyles gets picked in the lottery this year. 2 years ago, G.G. Jackson was picked in the second round. But remember, going into that season, G.G. Jackson was projected to be a lottery pick, or at least a first-round pick.
Yeah, no, we thought he was going to be obviously a one-and-doner and get his name called pretty early. And, there are reasons why he slid into the second round. But nevertheless, getting drafted is still a significant accomplishment.
Which showed you the upside and possibilities regarding talent for G.G. Jackson. Look, we don't need to rehash it. It just didn't work out the way everybody hoped.
He reclassified. He should have been a senior in high school.
Yep.
There's a lot of factors that went into that, but nevertheless, he still got there.
And you know what? He got drafted in the second round by Memphis, and so far, he's getting there.
He's stuck around.
He's getting there right now. He's getting better.
For second round picks, that's not a guarantee. So he is doing better than a lot of those guys have.
I mean, when you like we were talking about this yesterday, as a second round pick. You don't get a guaranteed contract. Some do, but most don't. A lot of it's a two-way deal or nothing guaranteed.
You're fighting to make the team, essentially.
Yeah. All right, so here's Lamont, cut 5, talking about what does Colin Murray-Boyles and G.G. Jackson getting drafted say about the Gamecock men's basketball program?
Yeah, I think it highlights a couple of different things. One is that, the talent that's in the state of, not only the state of South Carolina, but just even in the city and the surrounding city of Columbia. But I think when you talk about our program, we're rooted in things in development. We're rooted in good fundamentals, and so as you get to the next level, I think that's what it was. You see, Gigi got drafted maybe in a position that he or someone else didn't anticipate that it would be that, right? But when he got his opportunity as a young guy, 18-year-old, he makes the all-rookie team in the NBA because he was ready, because he was prepared. I think we have really helped him in that way be ready when his opportunity came to be able to go. He was able to shoot. He was touted as a rim-running, rebounding, lob-catching center when he was in high school, and we had him playing at the wing and making threes. And anyone that called me in anticipation of drafting, I said, hey, here's the one thing I know that he'll do. I honestly believe he's going to make open three-pointers at the NBA level. I honestly believe that, and sure enough, that's what he's able to do. Colin is a guy that 2 years ago nobody would have ever believed he would be the number 9 pick in the NBA draft. Nobody. I mean, no one really believed it. His parents probably hoped that would happen one day, but nobody believed 2 years later he'd be the number 9 pick. I'm not sitting here telling you that I thought that it would be the number 9 pick 2 years later, but I think we helped equip him with some of the tools needed to succeed at the next level and at this level. Obviously, we needed him to succeed at this level too, but I think it bodes well for your ability then to get an opportunity at the next level, and then when you get that opportunity, to make good on that opportunity.
It's interesting because you always take this stuff case by case, right? Our G.G. Jackson's year, again, he reclassified, and some guys are ready for that and some aren't in certain ways. And a lot of that is maturity, mental, just that moment in your life mentally where you're at.
Of course.
And so it was kind of a bumpy ride, but Gigi becomes a second-round pick, goes to Memphis. Remember, 2 years ago he started to play more because he had a ton of injuries at the end of the year and he got a lot of run.
Yep.
Last year wasn't the same. Only played in 29 games.
I think he got hurt last year, didn't he?
And he was hurt. And, his numbers weren't as good, but still he's got some run in the NBA, and we'll see where it goes from here. But Gigi on the court, I don't know how. I guess you could say he did develop to a certain point at South Carolina his freshman year.
Sure.
Colin Murray-Boyles in 2 years, there's been development, right?
Yeah.
The one thing we'll say that he didn't develop was obviously shooting from the three-point line.
Yes.
Was it better second year to first year? Because first year he didn't even take any.
Yeah, and Paris teased going into year two, like, hey, got this in the back pocket. I guess we expected an explosion of it to some degree, and it was here and there. He'd make a shot occasionally, but it never became a consistent part of his game, which, again, is the one thing that I think people left still desiring to see him do at Carolina more.
Now, so with Gigi in the league and it's going into his third year coming up, and now you have Colin Murray-Boyles being picked in the lottery. Now Cam Scott is a guy that was looked at as a top 50 player. Cam Scott's freshman year did not go the way anybody thought it was going to go. We'll see what happens as Cam stayed, went in the portal, and then came back. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens in year 2 with Cam Scott. Look, there are people who saw Cam Scott play in high school that said his skill set compared to what he was being asked to do, it seemed, at South Carolina, didn't really mesh at that point. Can it mesh? Sure. Can you tweak some things if you're Lamont to kind of play to Cam Scott's strengths more when he's in the game or whatever the case? Yes, you can do that as well. But we can all agree that even Cam Scott will tell you, my freshman year wasn't anything I thought it was going to be. Remember Lamont? Did Lamont make like a joke that if Cam Scott isn't freshman All-SEC that he would give his salary back or something?
Yeah, we haven't followed up on that.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. He said that specifically, but I don't think he's given anything back. Maybe he's hoping we forgot about it.
I did till just now.
But again, Cam Scott was one of those guys that went in the portal, obviously came out and is coming back to South Carolina. But when he went in, we were all like, yeah, saw that coming.
Oh, well, I'll say this. When you got about three-quarters way into the season, the way this world works now, what are you thinking to yourself?
Yeah.
If nothing changes in the last quarter of the year, this cat's going to hit the portal.
And again, if you would have told people, this time last year that, hey, guess what, Cam Scott's going to enter the portal after the year, it's like, oh, no, he probably played super well and got a big offer to go somewhere else. It was the opposite. He didn't play well, and it didn't seem like he had a future here at South Carolina. So goes in the portal. Obviously, they were able to get him back, but it didn't generate a ton of excitement. We're like, oh, my God, we got him back out of the portal. It's like, okay, well, I hope he can be better. We'll see.
Well, because, look, this was a team last year, and to put it nicely, was offensively challenged.
Yep.
And Cam Scott couldn't get any run. I mean, to me, that was one of the things that stuck in my head is like, you need offense, and you bring in this top 50 recruit freshman, and part of it is, he can get buckets, and he couldn't go on the court to make buckets.
Yep.
I know he really struggled out the gate, and I don't know how much it hurt his confidence. Also, again, does the offense fit his skill set, things of that nature? What's he working on to get himself better defensively? Is there's an issue that's preventing him from being on the court? Whatever the case,
sure.
It just didn't happen last year.
No, and again, he's somebody that can he have that kind of big step in year number 2 to potentially get himself in a position to be drafted next year? Yes, because I think his ceiling on talent is certainly that high. We'll see if it happens. We'll say going back to, again, Coach Paris, what he had to say about GG and CMB, you've now had 2 guys drafted in the past 3 years. Mm-hmm. You've made 1 tournament, and you've had 2 pretty bad seasons on either side of that. I think, given the talent that you have had with those 2 guys, as well as others that maybe didn't necessarily go on and get drafted, I think that increases pressure on year 4. It's like, okay, you've got the talent. These guys are being developed to the point of being able to play in the NBA. Why aren't you winning more?
And after last year, it's probably in your best interest to get this thing turned around.
Year 4. You've got a new AD that did not hire you, has no loyalty to you. Mm-hmm. Seemingly, you got more resources when it came to going out in the portal. And again, you flipped the entire roster. I mean, we've got an entire list of guys that we've never seen before play at South Carolina that are going to be, littering this team coming up next year. And fingers crossed and hope that they're better. We'll see.
11 new dudes.
Yeah, and one kind of half new, half old type of dude.
Let's get one more in here, Ed Bird. I want to grab cut 4 here real quick. Lon Paris talks about the concerns that folks have over Colin Murray-Boyles' height and his three-point shooting issues. Again, cut 4.
Well, those are people's concerns that are height for his position and his ability to shoot the 3. Steph Curry's downsides are probably height for the position and the ability to block shots. But I just don't think we think about Steph Curry when we think about blocking shots. We think about all the other things that Steph Curry does that change the game for his team. And so, height for his position, he's also got incredible measurables in terms of his wingspan relative to his height. He's got a level of power, which is different than strength. Strength is, you can measure that in a weight room. Power is different. It's functional strength and explosiveness combined. He's got tremendous power, off the charts power. And so, are you going to evaluate him? But here's someone that's really smart that says, hey, I don't think he shoots the ball great, and I'm sure, and down the road, maybe that's going to have to get better. I mean, how smart are you to be able to point that out? It's also hot in Colombia in July. But I certainly one day he's going to probably to advance to the next level of NBA player, he's going to have to probably add that to his game. He's a hard worker. He's had a lot of things that he has added to his game. Somebody asked me that. Well, if he knew he had to get better at shooting, why didn't he improve that much at shooting over last year? Well, he also got better at playing one-on-one back-to-basket in the post. He also got better at face-up stuff. If you look at most of his baskets his freshman year, again, he had all these other pieces around him, and they were unpredictable, what you might call garbage-type baskets, and he was incredible at that. Well, this year, it was different. We threw the ball to him and said, create something in a back-to-back situation. We said, create something in the middle of the floor with not quite as much space as you'd like, but some space to do. And so he had to add a lot of things to his game. So it's hard to add shooting to his game too. He's got incredible touch. He's got some mechanical deficiencies in his shot, I think, and someone will be able to get to those, iron out a couple of those things, and it wouldn't surprise me if one day he's a pretty good shooter. But the things that he does well, they're never going to change. I mean, he's never going to not defend like that ever. I just don't ever see that. He could average 30 one day in the NBA, and he's still going to be a guy that is wired to defend at an incredibly high level.
Look, I go with Coach on the fact that there are things Colin Murray-Bowles does really well that translate to the NBA. The defense, multiple positions he can guard, rebounding, passes, high basketball IQ, and inside the three-point line, he makes 60%. He finishes well at the rim. But there are the deficiencies that need to get better.
Now, again, when you kind of talk about the inefficiencies between him and a guy like Steph Curry, you don't have to be good at everything. Right. You can work on the things that you are already really good at and become a solid role player and stick around the league for a very long time.
Yeah, look, at worst to me, Colin Murray-Bowles is going to be what you just said. He's going to be a role player glue guy that does a lot of the little things well, that can help you win games. He's going to have a nice long career. If he can start expanding his offensive game, then you really got something.
Yeah.
Really got something special. Just in case you just woke up, some headlines from the sports world. The Pac-12 is adding people.
Pac-8, 9, 12, 14, 97.
And the Big 10 and the Big 12 are doing stuff behind everybody's back we just found out about. We got a lot of stuff to get to on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Kale, Ed Bird, till 3 on the game. Just in case you just woke up, Ace Bailey and the Jazz, this thing is not over.
This is going to be a thing for a while.
There's a huge problem. No, I shouldn't say huge problem, because to me, I still think the dude's going to show up and play for the Jazz. Look, I get the offense. His agent, Cooper, I get the offense. We are going to try to manipulate our guy to a spot in the NBA with a team that he can quickly become the number one option on offense and be the star and put up numbers.
Put up a ton of stats.
And then you get to the second contract, and then you get bags.
Yeah, whether
right?
that be with that team or somebody else coming after him. Like, on paper, it makes sense what they're trying to do. Now, the feasibility of pulling it off is another thing.
And it didn't work because that's what you just said. Last time I checked, you can't force people not to draft you.
No.
And when you have the kind of skill set that Ace Bailey does, look, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. Ace Bailey's got a ton of skills, but he's 18 years old. I think he reclassified off the top of my head. He's very young. His game, even though you see you see all the positives, shot making ability, the things that he can do offensively.
Yep.
But also his shot selection, playing within a team structure, I mean, the dude grinds on defense, so I give him a positive. But there are things that Ace Bailey didn't show at Rutgers, and by the way, not to be mean, also hurt Rutgers from being a better than 500 team.
I was going to say, that's the thing, is they had two top five guys get drafted, and they weren't a good team.
No, they didn't make the NCAA tournament.
Where's the correlation here? What's going wrong? Like,
So,
I get it from a fundamental standpoint. You're a guy, but like, shouldn't you have been better for your team?
Right, and so the point is, as much ability as Ace Bailey has, and most boards had him as a number 3 rated prospect coming out of college.
Yep.
For all that positivity, there are some concerns and things that have to get better. So then we move on to this whole draft process. Ace Bailey's not the first guy who wants to play for a certain team.
Right.
Or doesn't want to play for certain teams. I mean, we've seen it happen. But at the end of the day, there's something with this process that Ace Bailey and his agent went about that just smells.
You don't hold all the chips.
No.
Right? Like, what's the rule in poker? Is like, you can't bargain if you don't hold most of the power, right? Like, I feel like they're not yielding as much power as they think they have here.
Yeah, the other problem is, again, I forget who this was. We talked about not being able to read the room. Somebody did this a little while ago, but you got to read the room at some point.
Yes.
Okay, so if I think it's Amari Cooper, I think is the name of his agent. The guy's not really an agent, by the way.
Yeah, representative.
He's a representative. So I get what you tried to do. That's fine.
Yeah.
You failed.
Yeah.
Utah drafted you.
Now you have a situation, okay, what can we do to make the best out of this? That doesn't mean you can't go out there and still be a star, can't put up great numbers and still get a good contract, but the more you resist against this, the more difficult it's going to be.
And the issue, and I saw this in the article today, like I was hearing some of these guys talk on ESPN this morning, that Bailey still hasn't shown up to do his introductory presser and stuff in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, is the presser today or Monday?
I think it's Monday.
Yeah, but he hasn't shown up.
He hasn't shown up
in Utah yet.
No.
And they're questioning if he's going to be there Monday.
Right.
Yeah.
They're hoping he'll be here this weekend.
Yes. But again, your number one pick, you don't want to have the will he, won't he, like, maybe he'll be here, maybe he won't be, because, again, there's your next story. Ace Bailey doesn't show up for the introductory presser.
And here's the bad line. Now, this might not mean anything. Cooper, the agent, or the representative, declined to address questions about the Jazz or Bailey's future with the franchise.
This is, again, a situation where, again, it didn't play out the way you wanted it to, but when asked about your now organization that you play for, hey, we're committed to the Jazz, we're looking forward to playing at the next level, looking forward to developing, all this kind of, give them a BS answer if nothing else, because saying nothing makes this look worse.
Well, saying nothing says something, says you don't want to be there, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so now, here's what you're doing. You're going to if you're trying to leverage yourself out of Utah by being stubborn and doing something no one's ever done before, and if it doesn't work, now guess what your boy has to do? He has to go into that arena in front of those fans and play ball. Now, if he goes out there and he's phenomenal and he balls out and all that other stuff, all this goes to the side. But if Ace Bailey goes out there and struggles or doesn't get back on defense or doesn't show maximum effort every time he steps on the court, you know what that fan base is going to
they're going to turn on him.
Yeah, absolutely. They're already turning on him.
He might get booed in the opening game introductions.
Hell, he might get booed at the press conference.
He might.
I mean, here's the thing. Utah sports fans are some of the most loyal sports fans in this country.
Yeah.
That Utah Jazz fan base loves the Jazz. I mean, to a depth that most NBA franchises would wish that they had that kind of love from their fan base.
Yeah.
You're already souring that fan base on you if you're Ace Bailey.
You know who wins in all this? Jazz beat writers.
Oh, no doubt.
Every day until the season gets here, you got some kind of story about this.
They wake up giddy going, I hope he's not showing up yet.
Hope he's not showing up.
Oh my God.
In any word he utters or his team puts out there, it's a story.
Yes, has to be. So I think this is the point where Ace Bailey's agent, representative, this is where you have an inexperienced guy.
Yep.
This is when you've got to go to your guy and say, look, we tried. We gave it a whirl. We did everything we could. You know what, though, Bob? It's time for us to get in here and just and get in line.
And that's the problem with somebody that's not an agent. Do they realize they've kind of hit the end of the road with this? Do they realize they don't have the leverage in this situation anymore? Or do they think, we got them right where we want them?
Because you have no other clients.
Exactly.
And you got this kid with all this ability, so you think you still got cards.
Yeah.
Guess what you don't have anymore?
The cards, they're gone. And again, you as talented as he is, you don't want to see him end up on one of those like, hey, remember this guy that, screwed himself over before he ever had an NBA career?
And here's the other part of this. Is you're now putting him in a bad light in the league.
Oh, he looks like the entire league already has a perception about this guy.
Right, and so now you're 18 years old, and you're going to come into this league with a lot of negativity against you, and a lot of it's going to be unfair.
Yeah.
But the fair part is that you come off as an I guy and a me guy and not a team guy.
And again, everybody, because we were questioning going into the draft how far he's going to fall with this stuff about canceling workouts and not wanting to be drafted by any of the teams in the top 5. I think a lot of teams around the league, when they saw what the Jazz did, who said, screw you, we're going to take you anyway, are now sitting back and saying, okay, let's see how this plays out. Because again, if you're on the radar in a situation to have him on your team in years to come, you're looking at this situation, how it's handled, to determine if you want that guy or not.
And the other part, circling back real quick, we're going to hear Jonathan Giovanni cut 10. Rutgers, despite having 2 top 5 picks in the NBA draft, did not make the NCAA tournament.
Right.
So how much? Now, it's one thing if you would have led your team to a wonderful run in the dance.
Yep.
Then we've got evidence you're a team guy. Well, all we know is this. You got yours, but Rutgers didn't get theirs.
Yeah.
So once again, the perception of you being an I and a me guy.
Yep.
And now you're carrying it farther into the NBA draft. Let's get cut 10, Ed Bird. Jonathan Giovanni, who covers the NBA for ESPN, given the latest on Ace Bailey and the Jazz.
Malika, we're still waiting to hear on that from him, but as many of our viewers might be aware, Ace Bailey did not conduct a single known visit or workout with an NBA team. He was clearly determined to steer himself to a team outside the top 5. Many around the NBA believe that to be the Washington Wizards. I was told that his agent, Omar Cooper, told at least one team in the top 5 before the draft that his client will not report if they decide to draft him. Now, the Utah Jazz selected him regardless of all this, and now the big question is, are we going to see him in Utah anytime soon? I asked Omar Cooper his thoughts on his client's future in Utah, and he declined to answer those questions. He told me there's nothing uncommon about Ace Bailey's pre-draft process. 18 teams interviewed him. They all saw him work out at the NBA Draft Combine. They all have his medicals, his measurements. He's not the first player to decline or cancel workouts, which is absolutely true. Now, a press conference is scheduled in the near future for Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton. We're all going to see what comes of that if we get any more answers from Ace Bailey about what happened the past few months.
Real quick, I think it's funny how much the echo's in there because how few people attend the second and third round of the NBA draft.
Second round is so. I was watching a little bit of that. There was like 6 people at the Barclays Center.
And,
Spike Lee, and
Spike Lee and 5 of his friends. And
it was
in a hotel conference room.
So funny. All right, we have Firehouse Up Text Hour next, 803-404-6100. And wow, the Pac-12 could be adding a team.
Yes.
The excitement. Yum tingly. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Edberg, Kale. We're here till 3 on the game. All right, good. Our Firehouse Sub text the hour here in a minute, 803-404-6100 here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Ed Bird, Kale's here. We'll get into top of the hour as we roll out of football. 4-star recruit, wide receiver reclassified. Sequel Patterson has committed to South Carolina. We'll get more into that top of the hour as we do a lot of football talk, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. What you got there on the old Firehouse Sub text line, man?
Nameless Texter says Carolina still needs a point guard in a massively important way this upcoming season. If there was one topic I think we've beaten like a drum when it comes to men's basketball, that'd probably be the one.
Mm-hmm. And look, word is that, they're kind of going to run this offense through a multitude of guys. Whether it's Michi Johnson, Mongolian Mike.
Yeah.
Maybe a little Eli Ellis. We'll see before it's all said and done. But
and when Paris gave his presser earlier on this week, he did mention there is still a spot, a scholarship available if they wanted to add someone. Basically what they were holding in case CMB wanted to come back, which, again, I think we all knew for a while that wasn't going to happen. But I understand leaving that open just in case. But here's the thing. If there's a quality point guard out there, he's already gone somewhere else. Like, I don't think you're going to find that magic answer, at the 11th hour with your extra scholarship.
Anybody that's out there now, there's a reason they're still available.
Exactly.
And it's not a good reason.
Yes, like you have what you have in terms of trying to fill that role that, again, was sorely missed this past year.
And look, again, if you and I, just sitting around watching ball, can go, wow, this team needs a point guard really bad next year, I would think the head basketball coach knows.
That was probably at the top of his list of, like, what do I need in the portal?
And, we didn't really hear about them chasing hard a point guard. Now, maybe Lamont believes that the combination of Michi Johnson and our buddy Mongolian Mike, I just love calling him that, and maybe even Eli Ellis before it's all said and done, maybe he looks at he has enough guys to run the offense through. He believes in his way. Now, me, and this is just me, if I am Lamont Paris and I watched my basketball team with Talon Cooper running the point, a real pass-first, run-the-offense point guard, and watching what I watched last year and watching what I watched in my first year, it would be plainly obvious to me that the pass-first, run-the-offense point guard is the way to go.
Yeah.
Lamont didn't go get one. Like I said, maybe he believes Michi can be that guy or Mike can be that guy. I don't know.
And look, I'm sure he talked to a million guys out there in the portal in the process of getting what he got. Was there none that wanted to come here?
I mean, maybe not, but I just think if you got more resources, this is me.
Yeah, you would think.
Me.
You would think.
If I'm doing one thing in this offseason,
that's priority one.
I am getting a point guard. With my resources, I am jumping in the portal, and I'm running around all the portal rooms at the portal house to find a point guard.
Yeah.
Number one. And then I will go from there. That's me. Again, Lamont, a lot smarter than me.
Yep.
He is going to, you shouldn't agree with that part. Lamont has gone another way with this, and I hope Lamont is right because I want this team to be massively successful. It's a lot more fun when South Carolina is successful.
It does.
I hope Lamont's offense works.
We'll see.
We'll see. But Texter, you are correct. We appreciate 803-404-6100. A lot of football to get into in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors, including the latest commit, the latest welcome home for South Carolina. We'll get into that next here on the Halftime Show. Ed and Kale and Tyler and Terry till 3 on the game. All right, so South Carolina gets a commit. Sequel Patterson reclassifies.
Mm-hmm.
Top 5 player in the state, well, number 2 or 3 in 2027, reclassifying to 2026. He's like fourth
He's
now.
fourth
I think,
now.
in 2026.
Yeah, reclassifying.
Really good get. I mean, if you look at stats, over 1,200 all-purpose yards his junior year. I mean, a lot of really good programs were chasing Patterson. Michigan, Tennessee, Texas A&M, North Carolina, Kentucky, Virginia Tech, Maryland, and others. And he goes to South Carolina. Mike Furry's tearing it up, man.
Yeah, he's killing it. When you think about it in retrospect, what he's been on campus a little over a year, 14, 15 months, something like that, because all that stuff with Stepp and James Coley, that happened, February, March of last year, whenever it was. And since Coley's been on campus, man, he's been on an absolute heater when it comes to signing all the guys in the 2025 class and now working on the 2026 class with adding 5-star Patterson in there. Yeah, he's a heck of a recruiter. Playing in the league and coaching in the league, I think goes a long way with being able to appeal to some of these younger guys that obviously want to do the same things themselves.
Look, I think that is such an important tool if you know how to use it.
Yes.
Because again, some guys just don't have the heart or just don't have the innards to recruit. You just don't. I get it. I couldn't do it to save my life. But I think in anything, if someone is trying to sell you on coming to be with them, and that's really what this is, a sales job.
Yeah, exactly. You're pitching your team, your university, and why you'd be in the best interest of that young man to come play for you.
And if you've been there, done that, where this kid wants to get to at any level,
yep.
I don't care how you've gotten there, right? And you've played. That's going to matter to a recruit compared to, no offense, the guy that didn't get there, who's trying to recruit you. Because, again, the guy that made it to the NFL, where you want to get, can tell you stories about getting to the NFL.
Well, he's got the blueprint.
And being in the NFL.
Because he can say, hey, here's at this point what I did, and here's how I got better at this and this and that, which led me to accomplishing the thing that I know you want to accomplish. Like, again, you see the pathway through that guy because he's been there and done that.
It's like any business, any career, someone who has been there and done that in what you want to do, you're going to pay attention to and listen to more. It's just human nature. Like in this business, this is no offense to people. I have had guys in charge of radio stations I've worked at that have done what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
They cracked a mic and they talked on the air and they hosted.
Yeah.
I've worked with guys who have been in charge who haven't. Those guys are smart. Sometimes the guys who haven't been on the air were smarter than the guys who have been. But you know what? I listened quicker to the guy who had been there and done that.
Yeah.
Because he knows what it's like to sit and do what I want to do.
Been through the process.
He's been through it. He's lived it, knows the ups and the downs. He knows how to be successful at it. Or I can watch him and he's not successful and I can learn from the opposite. Whatever the case, the people who have gotten to where you want to be are the people you listen to quicker. And your want to connect with them is quicker. It's just human nature. I think Mike Furry has really taken that and ran with it.
And we've talked to him on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour a couple months ago. And, when you see him in interviews, talk to the media, like he just has that personality that I think a lot of people gravitate towards. And that's half the battle when it comes to recruiting, is being somebody that's personable, being somebody that can go sit in living rooms, that can go and sell this university, sell this team to these guys, in addition to what you've already done in your career as well, that make it enticing enough for them to say, yeah, I want to go there because I think that's going to put me in the best position to accomplish my goals and eventually get to the NFL.
Number one thing in recruiting is want to.
Yes.
You got to want to go drive to the middle of New Mexico and watch a 4-star nose tackle, right?
And I think about this because, of course, he was the former coach at Limestone, and now that program has shut down. I imagine recruiting was very, very hard at that school.
This is probably stealing compared to recruiting at Limestone,
He was probably having to scratch and claw for, the backup left tackle on somebody's high school team to come play for him. Like now, you walk in with the Gamecock logo or the USC on your chest. It's a little bit easier than I imagine that was.
I bet you, even little things. I wonder, when he was out on the road, because you always get a per diem.
Sure.
What do you think his per diem was from Limestone?
We found a gift card underneath a couch. Use that.
Seriously, hey man, we got you some gift cards. Go get them.
Go online to make sure they still got some on them.
Right.
We're not sure.
Don't forget to scratch off the back. So you have to have want to and desire to be a good recruiter. 2, you got to have a personality to connect to these kids. You just do. That's human. Like we always said with Nick Saban, Nick's got the personality of a goalpost. Nick this, Nick that. Yeah, to the media before. And we've seen the other side of Nick in these last few years.
That was the side that was sitting in kids' living rooms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the guy doing the joke that we all laugh about.
He showed you in public what you want, what he needed you to see. And again, when he's sitting down with mom and dad in your living room
Different guy.
telling you about Alabama, he's making jokes. He's playing Xbox with the kid or whatever.
I mean, who would have known that he would be so good in those Verbo commercials?
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a personality to Nick as a closer that we all were going, huh? But then you see the other side of him in these last few years. You go, oh, now I see.
Sure.
Okay. And so you've got to have a personality to connect with these kids, and more importantly, their families,
Yes.
their mom, the dad. The third thing, though, to add to those two things, if you've been there, done that, and these kids are going to look at you different than if you haven't been there, done that.
Yeah.
That's just real. So if you've got the enthusiasm and the want to, you got the personality, and then you have got the resume, you're doing what Mike Furry's doing.
Doing a phenomenal job. Again, we rave so much about this 25 class. And look, let's be honest. The law of averages tell you that not all those guys are going to pan out to be phenomenal receivers. And some of them may end up leaving South Carolina before too long just because the numbers, suggest that you can't have all these guys getting equal playing time, in the years to come. But there's a good chance that one or two of those guys could become a really significant contributor, maybe even this upcoming year. We'll have to see. But again, the more high-level guys you bring in, the better and more successful that group of people or that group of players can be. And again, he's done a really good job. Again, Silkwell Patterson's the first one for the 2026 class to be able to come in. And again, you still got a lot of time between now and December. There's a lot of potential wide receivers on the radar that could continue to add to that before this class is finalized.
Yeah, I mean, because look at all the wide receivers from this class coming in.
Yeah.
It's just been sick. All right, so also you're getting the best players in the state, right? And that's another thing Shane Beamer always talked about in his spiels were put the fence around the state. Of course, you're dealing with Clemson. Now, Clemson does a lot more national recruiting, obviously.
But still, if they want to swing a top guy in the state, they can usually do that too.
I mean, you got 3 of the top 5 this year. You got 3 of them. Clemson got the other 2. Mm-hmm. If you look at it. All right, 2025. 2026, real quick, as I spin myself through here, and it goes really slow. Always love when that happens.
Yeah, it's always at the worst time.
I mean, so, right now, if you look through the state.
That's California.
That's California. Why did it go to California? It jumped on me. That was weird. All right, let's do this. Let's go back down here and do that again. So get to 2026 real fast. Computer's just not cooperating. But anyway, South Carolina, that's the goal of Shane Beamer, is to try to pull in as many of the high-quality players in the state because, look, I get the national recruiting, right?
Sure.
But you've got to win or at least compete in your backyard at a high level.
Well, yeah, and that's step number one. And look, before Clemson became the national recruiting power that it was, it had to start winning the state. Because, again, for the longest time, it wasn't doing that. And obviously, you win the state, then you can kind of move on to bigger and better things. And, Carolina does pull talent from around the country. You look at what they do, obviously, up in the DMV area pretty much every single year. But it seems like priority number one for Shane Beamer still is winning the state, which they do a very good job of. Consistently year in, year out. And again, you're looking at this year's state lineup, and you see a lot of Gamecocks next to some of those names.
And in 2026, and again, long way to go, but in 2026, right now, South Carolina has 5 of the top 7 committed.
Yeah. And we know it's maybe not on the level of the Texases or Californias or Georgias or whatever. This is a very solid state when it comes to football talent.
Yeah, I mean, you have more talent here than for the size of the state. You have a lot of high school football talent.
It is weird how that, like, for a smaller state, basketball too, like the sheer amount of high level talent you can get, out of here is crazy.
And we were talking about that the other day when you look at South Carolina in basketball, and it might not be like a big depth, but I mean, you've got a Kevin Garnett and a Zion Williamson, and you've got players who have come from the state who have played in the league and have played at a high level in the league, and John Morant when he can keep himself together. So for a state of this size, the athletic talent in football and women's basketball
too.
Look at that for
Crazy.
a minute. It is insane. So we'll see where that goes. Sequel Patterson, reclassifying to 26, has committed to South Carolina.
I'm intrigued to see, because we've seen it ramp up these past couple years, how much of a flurry of reclassifications we're going to get over the next couple years, now that as a student athlete in college, you're guaranteed money. right? Like the more high-level guys, like I get it, okay, if you reclassify, you're guaranteed to start making NIL money. But now, through revenue sharing, if you're a scholarship athlete at a D1 FBS institution, you're making money regardless. Now, what that number figure is kind of depends on where you're at and all that kind of stuff. And look, there's a lot of kids out there in bad financial situations. They've grown up with nothing, and their families are counting on them to make it big in sports to help them out of poverty or whatever. If you're saying, hey, if I reclassify, I can guarantee you're going to start making $150,000 a year. You're going to see a lot more kids start doing this.
Yeah, and look, the reclassifying, and we talked about this with Gigi Jackson. We saw it with Cooper Flagg in basketball. We've seen it in football. So much of this is, I think, maturity and how you can handle it from the neck up.
Yeah.
Because you're a year ahead of your class. It's sort of like when kids get moved up in grades in school. Some kids are fine with it. Some kids fall apart because, maturity or mentally, you just can't deal with all of a sudden being moved. Because 1 year ahead when you're young, might as well be 10, right?
Sure, because everybody suddenly looks like adults.
Yes. You go, well, they got body hair. What are we doing here? Why am I here? So it's always about the maturity and how you handle it from the neck up. To me, as much as this, even if you might physically be ready,
sure,
but are you mentally and maturity-wise ready to take that step?
Yeah, and not everybody is.
Not everybody
and
is.
Again, just going off of what Wes has told us, that Sequel Patterson seems like a guy that's mature, got a good head on his shoulders, and again, we don't know if he's coming in the spring or it'll be in the summer next year, but he'll be in earlier than expected because he should be a senior in high school next year.
Well, you hear about I hear Donovan Murph is a mature kid like nobody's business, and Murph reclassified to come in this year, and he'll be here this summer. It's just you got to have that maturity about you if you're going to do it.
Yep.
Again, I don't know what I would do. I wasn't a high-level 5-star football recruit when I was a teenager.
Really? You weren't?
I know you're stunned by that. But it's just the idea that I would want to go to my prom. I would want to do all that stuff. But to your point, if somebody's going to throw me 6-7 figure money,
it's like,
I might be glad to screw that prom.
Sorry,
prom.
Susie. Find somebody else to take you.
Yeah, you forget the prom, but I'll take you on vacation somewhere.
Sure.
Like Cancun. So... Anyway, Sequel Patterson reclassifying and is committed to South Carolina, 4-star wide receiver from in-state. Football, and a lot of football, and even more football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on The Game. The Pac-12's ramping up, baby. Let's get to that next.
I will restate my case that I think we need to ditch numbers when it comes to conferences.
Oh, I don't disagree with that. It's hilarious. The Big Ten's got 100 teams. I mean, come on. Halftime show. Ed Bird, Kale, Tyler, Terry Ford here on The Game. Yapping a ton of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the Game. All right, so the Pac 8/9.
Again, numbers, they don't mean anything anymore.
No.
Let's ditch them. Just the Pac. The Pac Conference, the Pac West, the Mountain Pac. There's a lot of better
Mountain
names.
Sounds good.
Pac Mountain. Yeah, why not? Because, I mean, it's kind of what this is. This is just the Mountain West teams moving over together to a they should have just combined. Why not?
Pac Mountain.
Pac Mountain.
Or I do like the Mountain Pack, too.
Mountain Pac, that works.
Because you wear mountain packs if you go hiking.
Exactly. Boom. Then you could sell the naming rights to a company that makes it.
What's it, REI?
Yeah, or Patagonia or whoever, whatever.
Look, all I know is this. It's really just a bunch of Mountain West teams getting together with Washington State and Oregon State to build a conference.
Yeah, pretty much.
And they'd rather use the Pac-12 name because it has more cachet than Mountain West, even though it's not really the Pac-12 or the Pac-8 or the Pac-10.
I guess it has more cachet.
I guess.
Sure, maybe.
It used to be a power league.
Yeah, used to be.
I guess.
I mean, this isn't going to suddenly make it one again, but
no.
Okay, if you feel better about
and
it, why not?
It never will, by the way.
It never will, no.
Yeah.
With the 30 for 30 on the collapse of the Pac-12 is going to be very fun to watch.
It's going to be epic. There's no doubt.
By the way, I don't think our buddy George has spoken a word since then about it.
Poor George. What's he doing now? Just collecting that, just sitting around with that big buyout money?
Last year, because the conference still existed, I think he was still the commissioner of it.
Remember, he went to a couple of those things?
He went to a couple of things, but every time somebody asked, I got to get to a meeting or something. About what, George? What's your meeting about? You have two teams. What could you possibly be needing to go to a meeting about?
Are you going to a meeting at the unemployment office?
Yes. Are you going to submit your application for government assistance? Because you're probably going to need it soon.
It's just...
Hey, if you ever think you're terrible at your job, just remember George Kleinkoff, because you can't be worse than him.
Awful. Just awful. All right, so Texas State, it seems like, will become a member of the Pac-12 because they are going to get more TV money in the Pac-12 than they will in the Sun Belt.
Yes.
They just will. It's not going to be a ton more, but they're going to get more.
And there's the opportunity for this conference to grow more down the road to potentially get you more revenue down the line, which I think is why they're doing this.
And, of course, the Mountain Pack, they need another team to get to 8 football playing schools.
Yes, because when they collapsed and went from 14 to 2, there's a grace period that the NCAA will allow where you can operate under that 8 number and still be considered a conference, but you have to get up to that 8 number after I think it's 2 or 3 years to kind of reestablish yourself, which, again, Texas State is the key in doing that. From a football standpoint, because Gonzaga is going to join, they don't have football.
Right.
Yeah.
And, of course, Gonzaga, since they don't have to rev share football, is going to have a lot of basketball dough to go throwing around.
They're going to dominate whatever this conference is.
Yeah, whatever has happened the last couple of years at Gonzaga, they will, in a rev share world, be able to throw the money at basketball, men's basketball.
Yeah, them in the Big East.
Yeah, that a lot of folks can't. So if the Gonzaga, and look, Gonzaga falling off just means they're not one of the best programs. Now they're just a good program or a really good program the last couple of years.
Yep.
But if it's because of money, because they can't compete with collectives from other schools and stuff, well, the rev share is going to wipe a lot of that out in the short term.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Gonzaga and, like you said, the Big East and some of those other and basketball schools are going to be able to take advantage of it.
That's right.
All right, so Texas State, because I know you're interested. It's like, where is Texas State?
I love conference realignment. Please indulge me.
Beautiful. Texas State is obviously in the state of Texas. And they're between, now this is interesting, they are between, smack in the middle, between Austin and San Antonio.
Yes.
So you get 2 markets that are top 50 markets.
Yeah, by the way, beautiful view of the Pacific Ocean from there.
Oh, well, the Pacific Ocean runs right through the Texas State campus.
Yeah.
Just like the Pacific Ocean ran through the state of Colorado.
Yes.
And the state of Utah.
That's the water that runs down the mountains, right? That's what they make Coors Light out of.
Sure. Just like when they moved the East Coast to fit Boise, Idaho for a few months when Boise State joined the Big East.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. All right, so you're right in between 2 top 50 markets.
Yeah.
And not that means people in San Antonio are all going, so, honey, pack up the kids, let's go to that Texas State game. But we know that no one cares about that for market purposes, and TV purposes, and brand purposes.
It's proximity. And the idea, again, do people in New York City care about Rutgers? Of course they don't.
Of course they do.
But the fact that that's the closest FBS school to the city of New York, that's like, hey, that's New York's team. We can get into that market.
The only reason Rutgers in the Big Ten is because Rutgers football was on the New York City cable system when that mattered a ton.
Yeah.
And that's really it. So if you look at this, because really what you're trying to do, you try to walk into a TV executive's office and sell yourself.
Yeah, saying, hey, we think we can get X amount of viewers from this high-level market that's going to contribute to our revenue when it comes to TV ratings. That's why you do it.
So right now you're looking at really small markets of Pullman, Washington, and Corvallis, Oregon.
Yes.
You do get San Diego. Fresno's a top 100 market. Utah State is not that far from Salt Lake City, so you can try to sell that to a TV executive.
Sure.
Colorado State is in. Help me.
Are they in Colorado Springs?
I was thinking, was it Colorado Springs?
Yeah, it might be.
So that's not that might be a lower level, bottom part of the top 100, maybe. So, and I'm just doing TV markets off the top of my head. So when you look at that, Boise is just outside the top 100 markets. But here's the thing about Boise: there's nothing around Boise, Idaho.
Fort Collins.
Fort Collins, that's it. And Fort Collins, I think, is part of another conglomeration like Fort Collins, Greenlee, whatever, that makes a top 100 market. It constitutes. And then you'll have Texas State near San Antonio and Austin. But here's what you're doing here: you're playing the shell game. We're near this. We're near that.
Yeah.
We're near, except for San Diego State. All these are near something, but they're not in it.
It's about proximity, basically.
And that's what you're going to be selling to TV executives if you are this conference.
Yes, and again, props to them for kind of staying alive, because we all thought, we all went ahead and got the tombstone ordered.
Look, I give them credit. When you're desperate, when it's 1:45,
sure,
you got to dance whoever you can dance with, right?
Yeah, they're dancing with about a 4 right now.
Yeah, probably. Put it this way: the next morning might be cringy and uncomfortable.
Yeah. What went home at 2 with the 10, woke up at 10 with the 2.
Yes. There's a great Lyle Lovett song I can't really give the title to right now. That's kind of funny about that. We won't get. I think Ed Bird knows the song I'm discussing. Can't really give that title in today's world on the air, can I, Ed? No, I can't. All right. But this is look, I give the Pac-12 credit. They're trying to survive.
Sure.
We can have fun with it, but this is what you have to do to not lose your conference.
Yeah, again, I thought maybe just letting Oregon State and Washington State into the Mountain West would have been easier, because now you're essentially splitting the Mountain West in half. So you're hurting both instances here instead of just combining what you had. And again, you could have, I guess, carried the name over to the new conference and called it Mountain Pac or Pac Mountain, or called it the Pac-12 for the heck of it. I don't know, but this seems like the more complicated option here, but they got to deal with CBS. They still got the CW, so it's working to a degree.
I mean, like I said, when CBS the other day said they're going to work that partnership, and the key to that partnership really quick is the idea that you're streaming on Paramount Plus, you got the CBS Sports Network, and you have CBS the network.
Yes.
So you've got multiple platforms to deal with, and I haven't seen this yet in the stuff I've read, and maybe I've just missed it, but I'm sure that the Mountain Pac or Pac Mountain is going, oh yeah, we'll do a game Thursday night at 11 p.m., 3 a.m. We don't care.
You're not going to say no to anything at this point.
It's going to be Paction like Maction, right?
You guys want to play at 9 a.m. on Wednesdays? Sure, let's do it.
Let's do it, baby.
By the way, we'll stream that game on Facebook. I don't know.
They don't care. They don't care. All right, so it seems like Texas State will end up going into the Pac-12, and they'll give that conference 8 football playing schools.
By the way, the state of Texas will be the perfect encapsulation of how crazy realignment is, because we'll have a Pac-12 team, an ACC team, 2 SEC teams.
Big 12.
Big 12, yeah.
It's got Sun Belts in there too, right?
Like every conference is going to exist, with the exception of the Big 10 for now in the state of Texas.
We'll give it time. We should, during the break, just look and see how many different conferences in all
I will do that.
is in the state of Texas. Arch Manning is a thing. He's a topic. It's talking season, and maybe the most polarizing player in college football who has never started a full season is being talked about. We'll get to that next. Thoughts from Dan Wetzel. Thoughts from also Steve Sarkisian. We got that coming up next here on the halftime shows. We talk nothing but football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. We were at the Nest yesterday. It was phenomenal. Tyler got to see firsthand the wonderment that is the showroom, the Kreger showroom at the Nest. And look, if you want to redo the appliances in your kitchen, we had Graham on who was telling us about his infusion, I think is what it's called. Did I get that right? Or did I screw it up again?
Infection. Not infection. Induction.
Induction. And Graham says once you cook with an induction stove or oven, your world has changed. That's the kind of experts you have at the Nest. I had never heard of induction, and I thought it was some kind of movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. Induction cooking. But that's the kind of experts you have at the Nest. So if you want to redo your appliances in the kitchen, maybe you want to check out stoves and ovens and things of that nature, call 803-978-2025. Go in, tell them what your budget is and your vision and your goals, and they will hook you up at the Nest. 803-978-2025 on Gadsden in the Vista, the Nest, a Kreger showroom. All right, so Arch Manning's a thing.
Is he? I've never heard of him.
I know, stunning.
Is he related to those other Mannings?
Casey Manning.
Sure.
Who does the Gamecock games?
Yeah, I'm sure they're related.
They're close. Now, obviously, look, The last is he the last in line? Are there more little Mannings running around?
Does he? Well, Eli's got. I think Eli and Peyton have young sons, don't they?
So it might not be over.
I think Peyton has a younger son.
This might not be over.
That I think I've seen a picture of him throwing a football at some point. So, yeah, we might get another wave of this.
But Arch Manning is the latest, and obviously a ton of hype. $3 million plus $3.2 million of NIL collective dough to stay at Texas.
Yep.
Now it's Arch Manning's turn to take the controls and take the wheel.
Yes.
A lot of hype has gone around Arch Manning, and to be honest with you, you're hearing mostly the hype, but there's also some. Hey, what's all the hype about that we're starting to hear a little bit of?
It's interesting because when you keep telling people over and over how great somebody is, eventually that pushback starts to happen where people are like, well, they're not that great.
Well, especially when you don't have the resume to back it up.
Yes, if we don't, again, he started a handful of games against not great teams. He played against Mississippi State last year, which the first conference game. Okay, congratulations. I think most teams could have beaten Mississippi State last year.
I mean, honestly, I think Cale could have quarterbacked Texas.
He's elusive. He's sneaky.
You know, he's sneaky quick for his size.
Yeah, sneaky, athletic, hard worker.
He's a gamer.
Lunch pail kind of guy. First guy in, last to leave.
Exactly.
You know, all the usual cliches.
He's that guy. No, you know, he's all team.
Yeah, coach's kid. All that stuff.
Absolutely. So, I mean, Arch Manning showed you some stuff last year. We go, okay, I see the talent. I do. But we go back to he had his opportunity to take the starting gig in the Georgia game, and he couldn't cash it in.
Yep.
And then there's the idea, and people say this, and I understand this in theory, if Arch Manning was so bleeping good, why couldn't he beat out Quinn Ewers at any point in time?
7th round pick in Quinn Ewers. Like, it's a very legit question.
And people will talk about, okay, you know, Clemson, you know, their starter got benched for Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence was a true freshman.
Yeah. Oh, we knew Kelly Bryant starting that year was a formality.
Time. Yeah.
Like, all right, in about 3 weeks, we're going to hand the reins over.
I believe Clemson either lost a game to Syracuse or almost lost a game to Syracuse, and Bryant got benched for Trevor Lawrence the next week.
Pretty much.
If my memory serves me, again, my memory doesn't serve much of it. I got served too much. That's why my memory doesn't serve me anymore. So it's just the idea that, look, there are legitimate questions about Arch Manning, but it doesn't take a genius to see the talent.
Of course.
Now, is he getting overhyped for a guy who doesn't have a resume? First-team All-American, first pick in the NFL draft? Yeah, it's a little much.
Well, and that comes with the name, right?
If
he's any other five-star quarterback.
Do you think if he's Arch Head or Arch Ford?
Yeah, well, if he's Arch Head, he's probably not a 5-star quarterback. We're not known. We're not known for our great athletic ability in my family.
There's a name, Arch Head.
Listen, I played sports all the way into my junior year of high school. I'm the most athletically accomplished person in my family. So if that tells you anything.
But it's just the idea that I understand the pushback, and I do, the concerns make sense. And here's, let's hear from Dan Watts. We heard from Steve Spurrier said what everybody's thinking. Or not everybody, but there are a percentage of folks are thinking, well, if he's so bleeping good, why couldn't he take the starting gig from Quinn Ewers? Guy was a 7th-round pick, for the love of God. All right, Dan Wetzel talks about the number one question in college football, which is how good is Arch Manning? Cut 9 there, Cale.
So going into this season, that's my number one question is just how good is Arch Manning? If Arch Manning is everything that everyone kind of projects him out to be, that we now have the 4th great Manning quarterback, Texas is going to be impossible to beat. They're going to be really tough. But if he's just a normal guy, and by normal, I mean really good SEC level starting QB, where does that take us? And what if he struggles some? What is it? That to me is the single most interesting and uniquely interesting question. Every team goes into the season, you go, do they have a running game? Do they have this? Can the D-line hold up? Arch Manning is a unique storyline to this season to me.
Number one storyline of the season. And Dan Wetzel, by the way, ESPN. To me, it's easy that is the top storyline because we look at the quarterback situation around the country. You have a lot of question marks in a lot of places. South Carolina's lucky. They've not only got a quarterback, but a guy that's looked at to be hopefully one of the best in America.
A lot of questions at high-level programs that we expect to be contenders.
And Arch Manning's a question. He's the biggest question, I think. And again, if his last name was Bird, we wouldn't be having as much of a conversation.
And again, was Ewers phenomenal last year? No, not necessarily. But there was so much talent around him that even him not playing amazing was still good enough to get them to a semifinal and almost to the national championship.
I really believe that's another part of this is Ewers, besides the Georgia game, Texas obviously did not have a very difficult schedule.
Yeah.
Rolled through 2024. And I remember there was talk about 3/4 through the year about, is Quinn Ewers holding back the Texas offense? So one of my things, because again, coaches do this, we can agree, disagree with it. I disagree with it. I think every situation's fluid. But just a patent statement of, I'm playing that guy because he's the upperclassman, he's got more experience, doesn't wash with me.
Yeah.
I think at some point you have to look at the talent level of guys. Now, I think Sarkisian, again, Ewers came back from Ohio State. He was Sark's guy. How much of that played into all this? Because you're still winning games,
You're
right?
still winning games. And, yeah, there was never that, like, oh, my God, this is awful, we need to make a change type of situation outside the Georgia game. But, again, Arch Manning didn't prove you enough in that game
He had his chance
to take over the reins.
Right.
And you know, you talk about that seniority thing not quite being the case anymore because most programs know if they have a well-established young talent that is probably better than their starter and he's not playing, guess what? He's going to leave.
Exactly.
Texas knows, though, Arch Manning was coming back. They had all the NIL, all that kind of stuff tied up where he knew he was going to be the starter in 2026, regardless, or 2025, regardless of what happened in 2024. So it's almost like Sark knew he had that to play with, and he just kept rolling with his guy.
And you still, you got deep into the college football playoffs. You found a way to survive that Arizona State game you should have lost. But, so I think that if you just want to go like the ball coach did, well, if he's so good, why couldn't he take the job? I think there's much more of a complicated, stew in this thing for last year.
There is, and let's again go back to if his last name is not Manning, if he is Art Smith, still a 5-star quarterback, the cries for him to become your starter last year would not nearly have been as loud because again, Ewers was playing fine, not elite level football, but not egregious enough where he said, oh my God, this is awful, please get somebody else in there. Right. But the fact that you have this shiny object with a lineage of great quarterback play waiting in the wings, people are frothing at the mouth to see him finally play.
Yeah, and so he will. Here's Steve Sarkisian, really quick at Cut 7 in here, Kel, talking about Manning earning the starting quarterback role.
I think naturally going into year 2, he wanted to play more than he played, but he knew his role on that team. And when his number was called, man, he did really good things for us, and he competed his tail off. And he's forever in the archives at the University of Texas. He was the starting quarterback in our first SEC win, in our first SEC game against Mississippi State. He got put into games at some really critical moments. At A&M, he gets put in. That first touchdown drive where he pulls it and runs for a touchdown. And so, he's been exposed to some things naturally. I don't think that I could have predicted a better way for this to go for him, to where he's grown exponentially, not only on the football field, but as a leader, as a person. I think he's ready to play now and play at a high level, and we don't have to go through as many growing pains. Sure, there's going to be some, but we don't have to go through as many because of the exposure that he got. And I think he's earned the respect of his teammates, that they know he's not playing because of the name on the back of his jersey. He's going to be our starting quarterback because he's earned it, and that he's ready to play. And you can feel it. You can feel it in spring, but you definitely can feel it this summer right now that this is his team, and that he's got the respect of his teammates.
You heard what Sark said. He knew his role. He knew what his role was going to be last year.
Sure.
And his role was to back up Quinn Ewers and to be a change of pace quarterback in games, right?
Yeah.
And look, again, with Ewers' numbers, he completed 66% of his passes, roughly, about 8 yards an attempt, 31 touchdowns, 12 picks, got sacked 31 times. The eye test said Ewers was not good at navigating the pocket, not good at feeling pressure, held the ball too long at times. 12 picks, you might go, it's
not great.
Bit much, but 31 touchdown passes. Again, 66% completion percentage, and he did go 8 yards an attempt. Now, I think when you have that much talent around you,
sure,
you can't help but put up numbers if you play, like you said, solid, fine.
Yeah.
But I really circle back to Sark was not going to take the keys away from Ewers unless he totally hit the bottom.
Right.
I just believe that.
By the way, can you name any other quarterback in the Texas QB room right now?
No, see, Malik Murphy left for Duke last year and left Duke. Right now, no, I can't.
I don't think most people can. A redshirt freshman, a true freshman, and a redshirt junior they've thrown a combined 4 passes, all those by one guy.
Who's going to win that job?
Yeah, I don't think it was much of a competition.
No, don't think so. All right, we talk a ton of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We'll get our Firehouse Sub text the hour next at 803-404-6100. And the latest on former Ravens kicker Justin Tucker. We haven't yipped about that yet. All that's coming up on the halftime show on the game. Let's jump into our Firehouse Subtext the hour, 803-404-6100 here on the Halftime Show. What do you got, man?
Let's see here. Nameless Texter says, do you think the Manning Passing Academy camp, whatever you want to call it, is the reason why the content regarding Arch has increased? I'm assuming like the notoriety for him coming out of high school and stuff.
You know, I think it's a great point, Texter. That's another part of this. I think there's many layers to, besides the fact, okay, Arch is Cooper's kid and he's a Manning and all that, and the lineage of the quarterbacks.
He put up some crazy numbers in high school, though.
Oh, it was ridiculous. I remember showing highlights of him in New Orleans.
Yeah, because he went to Newman just like his dad and Peyton. I don't know, did he go there too?
Probably.
I think he did.
They all went to Newman. And it just, I mean, he was filthy in high school, the numbers. And I think that is another wave to it, the Manning passing camp. Obviously, he attended every year.
Yeah.
And so he's working and the Manning passing camp has evolved to where you have so many other actual quarterbacks coming into work. Remember, that's where Johnny Manziel got drunk and couldn't get up and work, and then they had to send him home.
Yeah.
Well, Johnny Manziel drinking.
When Peyton Manning gets mad at you, you know you really messed up.
You screwed up. So I think, that just kind of does build upon the foundation of it's a Manning, it's a quarterback. Yeah. So I don't think it hurt to the point of what the texter's saying. It does. Put it this way, it doesn't do anything but help.
That's right. But, all things considered, take his name out of it. I still think he met all the qualifications for being a five-star recruit, high-level recruit, and all that kind of stuff. I don't think it's his name that's propping him up, but I do think that, in addition to the passing academy and all that, is why there is so much more buzz than the average five-star quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. It's the buzz because of the name. It's not that, look, we've seen, I'll use one, Bronny James.
Yes.
Bronny James is getting what he's getting in large part because of his dad.
Yeah.
If Bronny James was Bronny Ford or Bronny Bird or whatever, Bronny James would not have been drafted.
Bronny should have never gotten. Look, the guys that got drafted in the second and third round last night, compare their college careers to Bronny James's. Yeah. They're all better.
Yeah, I mean, look, Bronny James got drafted just because of his dad, and that's it. Arch Manning is not getting all this love because of the Manning family.
No, he has earned the accolades he's gotten up to this point.
And now we'll see if he can earn more of the hype and the accolades from this moment on when he starts to play at Texas. And, of course, your opener's against a real But
here's gonna be the funny thing, and again, this is very much first take type of stuff. But coming away from that first game, it's either gonna be Arch Manning is the greatest quarterback to ever live, or this guy's a bust.
Yep,
because they're either gonna win or lose this game.
And look, I know Ohio State lost a lot of defensive talent to the NFL, but Ohio State has about 105 stars on the bench ready to step
they might
in.
also still have the best safety in the country in Caleb Downs.
Right. So Ohio State's still Ohio State, and that's a huge test for Arch Manning. But the interesting part is Ohio State's defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia.
Yeah.
It's weird, man.
Yeah.
Very weird.
We'll see.
Yeah, we will. All right. Real fast. Let's see how much time we have here. Yeah, we'll save it for 2 o'clock.
Okay.
We're going to get Adam Schefter's thoughts on Justin Tucker and that suspension. Because again, it's not just a black and white issue at this point.
It's a tricky one.
Yeah. Because
it looks real bad, but it's not innocent until proven guilty. Still a thing.
And so far, nothing. There's not even been a massive civil suit.
Yeah.
That's coming. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, sure.
The attorney handling this is a guy that's handled other big civil cases.
At the same time as the NFL, you can't just not do something.
Well, again, as an employer, you have a right by the CBA that players signed on with that you can discipline, and you use the broad strokes of violating the league's conduct policy.
Yeah.
And things. It's like any job you work at. There are rules and regulations to your conduct, and there can be ramifications if you break the rules of your agreement. So we'll hear what Adam Schefter says about Justin Tucker coming up also. Lamont Paris talking about Colin Murray Boyles on the postgame show yesterday. We'll re-rack you a little bit of that coming up next here on the halftime show with Tyler, and Cale, and Ed, and Terry here on the game. All right, halftime show. Terry and Tyler and Cale and Ed, we're cooking here till 3 on the game. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. Lamont Paris hanging out on the postgame show yesterday with Jay and Elijah, talking about Colin Murray-Boyles getting drafted by the Toronto Raptors, number 9 overall. Let's get to cut 1 first of all here, Cale. Lamont Paris telling Jay and Elijah his emotions watching CMB get picked.
Anyway, my butterflies, I wouldn't say butterflies, but you hope for Colin's sake and his family's sake that he gets, 2 things. One, I think the most important thing is that he gets the actual best situation and opportunity for him. I think that's the first thing that you're hoping for. And then the second thing, you're hoping that he does that with the best draft position possible, because every slot you slide down, it's less guaranteed money for the most part. So in a perfect world, you get a great pick in terms of the number, and then a great pick in terms of the organization and their plan for you and all that kind of stuff. And so you're just always real hopeful. I was very hopeful just in some of the conversations that I had with a lot of these guys that had a worse pick than number 9, that were kind of hoping that Colin would still be available. And that's when I really started to get excited about what might happen. But it's draft night, and until you push the button that says Colin Murray-Boyles, there are no certainties in that draft. And so I was really excited, really happy for him.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know until you know, right?
Yeah,
and
sure.
I know that Jay Billis had Colin Murray-Boyles as his best available at that point in the draft, if you're watching on ESPN. So it was not a shock that CMB went there. But, yeah, sometimes it happens where you fall a couple of notches. And I still I was going into it, I was like between 10 and 20. I thought it was going to be the sweet spot. And he landed at 9. And look, it was really interesting with Boyles. There was people so split on him, where there were people concerned about the 3-point shooting problems and the fact that, height wise, he's a tough fit positionally in the NBA. Others were like, yeah, but his wingspan's 7 feet, and look what he can do on defense. Look what he does as rebounding. Look what he does as a passer. Basketball IQ, makes winning plays. Effort, all these things. So you had this kind of all over the board about him. But we talked about this yesterday, he's a good fit in Toronto with what they're doing. It'd be nice if they had better, consistent 3-point shooting to where Colin would have more space.
Sure. But
I think what Colin Murray-Boyles brings to the table, Toronto needs in a lot of ways, especially on the defensive end of the court. And I think it's a good fit, even though, again, they just lost their head of basketball operations, who just got basically canned after 12 years.
Bit of an interesting couple days there for Toronto. But again, we know what he does well, and certainly there's room for improvements when it comes to some of that shooting stuff and kind of developing on that can certainly come, with time and his time in the NBA. But even if he just excels at the things that he's really good at, mainly the defensive side and obviously moving the ball around, he can still hang the link for a long time, which at the end of the day, that's goal number 1. Make sure you're good enough to stick around, and then continue to improve from there.
You know what you do if you stay around for a long time? They keep cutting you checks.
Yeah, you make a lot of money in that way.
Strange.
And again, he's going to get a nice check for being a first-round pick, and it's all guaranteed. So good start, and we'll see where it goes.
All right, one last cut from Lamont real quick. We're going to get cut 2 here. We were talking about the fit with the Raptors. I think it's a good fit in a lot of ways. Here's what Lamont Paris thinks about the fit with the Toronto Raptors. Cut 2, Cale.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is, and I was telling people when they were considering drafting Colin that, I think the biggest thing is that you have to play in a style that's going to suit him and the rest of your personnel. But, you don't draft Zach Edey and play in a way where you're never going to throw the ball into the post. That doesn't make that much sense. And so I think the things that Colin does, he does those things really well. I think those things are very reproducible. And so On some levels, I think he could find a way to fit into most programs or organizations. But I think this one, obviously, there were a lot of guys out there, and they feel really comfortable with him. I do think they drafted him on. It seems that they drafted him on fit versus drafting him on just best player available, which a lot of times guys will just do that. And I'm not saying that I don't think he was the best player available, but when you're looking at just raw sheer upside on some of these guys, people are willing to, take a swing at the fences and then maybe not get there in hopes that they also might uncover, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander in the process, or whoever it might be. But so I think he'll be able to help them as a defender, as a guy that can make plays. And here's the other thing. People oftentimes draft a guy, and the guy averaged all these points in college, and then you get into the NBA, and your role is not to do that. And I think Colin's already ready mentally, and he's prepared to play the kind of role that can help any team win. He doesn't have an ego, and he prefers to help others look better than to have himself look better, and that's a rare quality.
Yeah, I mean, look, we always have gone back to Colin Murray-Boyles giving total effort through a terrible season when he could have checked out.
Sure.
The SEC tournament where he was getting beaten up and battered and just kept going. And I think there's some intangibles that also, when you bring in a guy like a Colin Murray-Boyles, he brings intangibles that are important to you to win games.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that can affect the game without touching the basketball. And when you got guys, look, some guys, if they're not touching the rock, they're useless to you. Colin Murray-Boyles can affect the game in ways where he does not have to have the ball in his hands.
And I feel like that's somebody, especially when you get to the league at this point, if they're not already doing that, it's really hard to get them to turn into that type of player, as opposed to a guy that is good on defense, is good away from the ball, that you eventually want to hope to develop into a better shooter. Like, I feel like that's an easier process than getting somebody that is a shooter to be better at playing defense.
Yeah, sometimes guys who are just ball dominant and struggle when they don't have the ball in their hands, they're lost. They're just like, I don't know what to do. So Colin Murray-Boyles brings a lot of positives to the table for the Toronto Raptors. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Let's get to cut 8 here, Kale. All right, Justin Tucker was suspended for 10 weeks by the NFL yesterday for conduct, breaking the NFL's code of conduct. Basically, you know the Justin Tucker story by now. If you don't, it's kind of like Deshaun Watson, light.
Yeah, and again, there's potential of more coming down the line, but a lot of accusations, obviously terrible stuff if it does end up all being true, that, again, you can't just not do anything about it, but again, you still don't know everything here.
Right, so we'll see where it goes. The inappropriate behavior at massage centers across Baltimore and Maryland, and you have enough, like, where there's that much smoke, like Deshaun Watson, when there's that much smoke, there's typically a fire.
Sure.
And we'll see where this goes. But for right now, Justin Tucker has been suspended for 10 weeks, and Tucker took the suspension. Well, let's let Adam Schefter tell it. Here's Adam Schefter talking about the Justin Tucker 10-week suspension.
And the NFL has suspended Justin Tucker 10 games for violating the league's personal conduct policy. Tucker is free to sign with other teams. He can go to training camp, but he will be suspended for the first 10 weeks. He issued a statement through his representative, Rob Roach, in which he said basically he disagreed with the NFL's assessment of the situation. Everybody knows what Justin Tucker was allegedly involved in during the offseason. Contact with masseuses, asking certain favors. But in this particular case, he insists that he's done nothing wrong. He stands by his statement of innocence. The league went so far as to suspend him for the 10 weeks of the season. But Justin Tucker also said he's prepared to accept the league's punishment and move forward from this point on.
My guess is, first of all, Justin Tucker picked a bad time to have the worst year of his career.
Yeah, not exactly a lot of people clamoring for him coming away from last year.
Now, if Justin Tucker would have came off the best year of his career, I don't know if the Ravens would have got rid of him in the first place. Just to be fair here.
Sure.
Look, I am from Baltimore. I am a Ravens fan. I have seen them, Ray Rice, watch them handle things in not the best way in these type of situations.
Sure.
And Ray Rice was coming off the worst year of his career. So my thought, we talked about Greg Hardy. You and I talked about Greg Hardy this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Hardy, if you ever want to read stuff that will make you uncomfortable, you can read the Greg Hardy saga with his estranged girlfriend, I think, at the time. But Greg Hardy was a high-level pass rusher, and he got a gig with the Cowboys because of it. But when you are coming off the worst year of your career and you have the issues you're being accused of by Justin Tucker, your phone's not ringing a lot.
No, it's not. And again, the league's kind of put in a tough spot because, again, these are a lot of damning accusations that you can't just ignore, but at the same time, he's not been charged with anything. And again, there's probably a civil case coming, here in the very near future. This allows them the time to see what unfolds there. And if it's something that ends up being even worse, then they could further the suspension or just ban him from the league outright. So it allows some time for that. And again, if nothing comes to light and he has the opportunity to come back, then if there's a team making a playoff push that really needs a kicker, they can go out there and sign him after, week 10.
And if we're just talking about the business of this, if you're Tucker, look, it's going to take time for all of those to unravel anyway.
Yeah.
So you might as well just take the suspension and get done with it.
Yeah.
I hate going from this story to Wander Franco, to be quite honest with you. The Wander Franco story is disturbing in many ways.
Yeah.
Wander Franco was looked at as the next great player for the Tampa Rays. He was the best prospect in baseball for multiple years. So far was building a solid career with the Rays. We're going to hope be a phenomenal career. They gave him a long-term deal, the player-friendly, team-friendly, long-term extension for a young player. And then Wander Franco, it came out, was having relations with a teenage girl. And Franco was not a teenage boy. Well, Franco received a suspended 2-year prison sentence on Thursday. Prosecutors sought a 5-year sentence, but the judge said Franco would not serve further prison time unless he ran afoul of the law. And one of the conditions also is he cannot have contact with minors in a physical way like he did with the 14-year-old girl.
Yes.
But here, that's disturbing enough. But let me give you the next layer of disturbing. The mother of the victim was convicted of trafficking her daughter, who, again, was 14 years old.
Yeah. They found a lot of money in the home when they raided it that you would assume was from Franco for these services, essentially. Just an awful story.
Prosecutors proved she sought financial gains from Franco and laundered money. Basically, the other part of this was, according to reports, Franco met the girl online in 2022, would send helicopters or cars to pick her up and bring her to him.
Yes.
The one thing, though, I do find, and again, I wasn't in the courtroom, didn't hear the evidence, the mom, and she deserves longer than 10 years, by the way. What a vile thing to do to your kid.
Yep.
But number two is the man who actually had the relationship with the underage girl gets a 2-year suspended sentence.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? He's Wander Franco.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. We're going to get our buddy Scott Hamilton, columnist from the Post and Courier, to jump on here. Scott wrote a very interesting article about the athletic fees you pay at universities and why you have to get used to it.
Yep.
And it could be even more in the future. That's next. Scott Hamilton, columnist from the Post and Courier, hanging out with us next on the Halftime Show on The Game. All right, let's get the supreme columnist. My favorite columnist at the Post and Courier.
You got a ranking?
Yeah, there's Scott Hamilton, and there's Scott Hamilton and Scott Hamilton.
Oh, Scott Hamilton in third?
Yeah.
It's a little harsh.
Yeah. There are no columnists but you, right, in the entire state.
I got to ask, how are we feeling today, Scott? We feeling
that's
better
right.
this
Let's
week?
get to that. I heard you. You know what? I used to have respect for you as a grinder until I heard about last Friday.
Yeah, and it turns out COVID is still a thing.
Oof.
Did you get COVID again, or did you have COVID before?
I've had COVID about 5 times.
Jeez, your immune system stinks.
That's okay. Make fun of me. Tyler cares. Tyler cares.
I do. When you told me that your voice was not working, I'm like, well, that's not going to work for radio
Here's
very
the
well.
thing. You didn't tell Tyler you had COVID.
He did not say he had a COVID. He said he was sick.
You said you were sick, and look, sick is whatever, but COVID's different. Now I have to feel bad. I was going to make fun of you, and now I can't. So now I'm annoyed at you because I can't make fun of you.
Well, I had not gotten tested yet. I felt bad that morning. I'm like, man, this sucks. And I took an at-home test, and it came back negative. And I went, okay, all right. I still need to go get checked out. And then it came back positive. So, but Tyler didn't know. Tyler was just wondering about my well-being anyhow.
No, honestly, we were all making fun of you because we didn't know you had COVID. We thought you were just being a sissy man.
I have had to fill time for you from the side of the road. I've done it in a McDonald's. I've done all I can to help you fill 15 to 20 minutes of airtime, but you get paid for.
Yeah,
you get for.
I think he's built up some equity.
Yeah, I hope
Tyler getting points today.
I hope you feel better, my man.
I'm working on it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, in all seriousness, you wrote a really good post in the Post and Courier about the athletic fees that are part of going to school at like Clemson or South Carolina or universities all over the country, and how these, I mean, a lot of people get annoyed about paying these fees, but you said, hey, look, A, it's here to stay, and 2, they're very important for the bigger picture. Please explain.
I was surprised by the amount of feedback I got on this column from all over the country, actually, from people in academia to some sports attorneys to fans. And I actually had very little negative comments, because this is the way of the world, Terry. I mean, you nailed it. They're not going away. They're not going away. I mean, schools have charged fees since, books were first put together in binders in order to fund projects around campus, capital projects or whatever. I mean, let's face it, when we were in school, there were fees being paid for a building or a library that neither of us ever stepped foot in.
Right.
I mean, honestly, you helped, Terry Ford, you helped build a chemistry lab that somebody was able to leverage into a very successful career. But that's what it is now. That's what it is. And these students are paying to help the athletic department continue to bring a lot of attention to the university, because the Flutie effect, and we can dive into that if you want, that's legit. It's a real thing. It's quantifiable. But B, along with that, a whole lot of money, brother, a whole lot of money, because the world of academia has become just as competitive as the world of athletics. And they being the powers that be for universities and so forth, they have to do all they can to not only remain relevant, but to remain successful if they want to stay in business. Because you can look right up the street, man, in Daphne, Limestone University, around 200 years, and I know it's Division II, not necessarily apples to apples, but it had to close its doors, man. It had to close its doors. And if that can happen there, who's to say it can't happen somewhere else? So,
and you mentioned in the article the fee for Carolina goes from 172 up to 300. What's the? Because look, everybody's going to try this. Everybody's going to push this limit as far as they can. How far is too far? Like at what point do people say, no, this is ridiculous, I'm not paying for that, no matter how good the football team is? Like, where is that line, if at all?
Well, actually, it goes from 172 to 472.
It's in addition to. Okay, it's an add-on to the 172. Okay, even more then.
But even that seems nominal. compared to like at a James Madison, and I mentioned it in the column. James Madison charges $2,400 a year. $2,400 a year to its students. James Madison's athletic department runs on a budget of about $68 million. $54 million of that comes from these student fees. I mean, the students are subsidizing basically the entire athletic department. And that was a strategic move on James Madison's part. Terry, you probably remember, you and I are of a certain age, when James Madison was a nothing burger. It was neither here nor there. World of College Athletics, it was a middling FCS program, low-level Division I basketball, trying to make hay in the CAA. Then they start instituting these fees about 15 years ago, and you could chart the rise in James Madison athletics running parallel with these fees. They become better in basketball. I mean, they're not, going to win NCAA tournament, maybe not, but they're competitive. Football is really competitive now. You can see how well they've done since they made the move up from FCS because of these fees. That's how it's working there. And so to your point, Tyler, when you put it into that kind of context, they put it in that kind of position, what they're doing at James Madison is nothing compared to what they're doing at South Carolina or Clemson, where they're saying, hey, $400. We're not going to spend it on IL. We're not going to spend it on revenue share. We're not going to create scholarships for this. What we're actually going to do with this money is enhance the student experience at these events. We're going to keep it so you students don't have to pay for tickets anymore. We're going to fix it so that you students have better seating and better amenities. And it goes back to my earlier point, recruiting students. That's what that's about. You want to come to South Carolina? Well, guess what? We're going to give you a great education. We're going to let you do all you can to be successful in life. And while you're here, you're going to just have an awesome time at these sporting events. You're able to go to world-class football. You're able to go to world-class baseball, world-class basketball. And it's not going to cost you anything extra. It's all rolled up in your tuition. How's that sound? That's what it's going to be going forward. Now, what the cap on it is, I don't know, because college athletics is a big business. It is a big business. But I think at some point it has to level off, at least for a while. I can't see it adding another 300 next year, another 300 after that.
According to the post from Scott, South Carolina could haul in more than $11.5 million in revenue, Clemson $8 million. All right, my friend, what else you writing before we let you go real quick? What do you got going on next?
I got a couple of things. Getting into a dive about Charleston Southern. They're not opting in on the house settlement. How are they going to survive not doing that? And you can read about it Monday. We talk about the transfer portal, student athletes moving all over the place, changing addresses. What about coaches? What were the biggest moves coaching-wise that'll have the biggest impact, good and bad, this year in college football? And I'm talking about assistants, not necessarily head coaches.
At Scott Hamilton PC on the old Twitter, Scott Hamilton, columnist, Post and Courier. Hey, man, seriously, get better. Come on. Don't start doing the fake cough.
Terry,
now.
I think you need to bring him like some soup or something now to make it up to him.
I got a special soup. It's called it's made with a special ingredient. We'll get it to you. Make you feel better.
This is a family show, Terry.
I was talking about whiskey.
Yeah.
Oh, it's family, baby. I need a shaw and some like lentil soup.
A shawl.
That's Grandpa's soup. Whiskey. My grandma would be like, ain't nothing a little shot of whiskey won't fix. That was my grandma.
I told you. Couch's grandpa used to give me cough syrup, and it would be a bottle of cough syrup with a third of it with cough syrup, and the rest would be moonshine.
I was saying, has anybody tried castor oil on COVID? That was the trick back in the day, right?
I tell you what, how about we'll get you a shawl and some castor oil.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, castor oil.
There you go. I'd forgotten about castor oil. That's a great pull. Oh, my God.
I love it.
All right, Scott Hamilton, we'll talk to you next week, sir. Feel better, man.
Thank you, boys. See you.
All right, we'll see you. Greatest day in the history of the world, which is, June 27th? That's next here on the Halftime Show on The Game. All right, greatest day in the history of the world is June 27th. This one doesn't have a lot of old school in it.
Yeah.
Not like usual.
We're in a slower period of the calendar, so that makes sense, I guess.
Not a lot of old school here. Just, I mean, we've some like okay. In 1903, Willie Anderson captured the U.S. Open.
Cool.
There we go.
Nice. that qualifies.
It's something. There's not a whole lot. At this time of year, you got a lot. You got some boxing. You got some tennis. The baseball obviously is going on.
Sure.
But yeah.
Well, unless somebody throws a no-hitter on this day or hits a milestone with hits or something like that, how noteworthy can it be?
Yeah. So our guy Willie Anderson, by the way, Scottish immigrant, came to the United States, became the first golfer to win 4 U.S. Opens: 1901, 1903, 1904, 1905.
That's a heater.
There you go, man. He was rolling. He was rolling.
What do you think his Vegas odds were going into the 4th one?
Oh, it had to be. I mean, man, if you had FanDuel and DraftKings and all that stuff back then. But here's the thing about this guy. Now, you look at it, he won 4 U.S. Opens, died at the age of 31, officially from epilepsy.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah. And he was even playing competitive matches right up to a few days before his death. But then a golf historian wrote, no, Anderson drank himself to death.
Oh.
That was written in 1995. Epilepsy, drink yourself to death. Interesting.
I mean, the drinking could have an effect on the epilepsy, which could mean both contributed to it.
So, anyway. Well, we found something out of Willie Anderson there real quick.
We learned.
1903.
That's what this is about, is learning.
That's right. We're learning here. Greatest day in the history of the world. 1979, Muhammad Ali confirms his 3rd retirement as final. It wasn't, of course. Muhammad Ali then came back and fought again.
Yep.
And look, we talk about him on and off, and he just kept going, kept fighting. Would retire, come back, and and one of those things. And look, you don't. I've always been you don't ruin your legacy.
Sure.
Your legacy is your legacy. No one all of a sudden takes a Men in Black pen and wipes away your legacy. But was it sad when you saw the end of Muhammad Ali's career when he shouldn't have been fighting in the first place, and he's trying to fight Larry Holmes? And Muhammad Ali's way past his prime. And in your prime, Muhammad Ali would slap Larry Holmes all over the ring.
Sure.
But it doesn't ruin a legacy. Like I was hearing someone talking about Aaron Rodgers, and if he doesn't have a good year in Pittsburgh, it ruins his legacy. No, it doesn't.
No.
There's no ruining your legacy.
10 years from now, when we think about Aaron Rodgers' career, you're not going to think about the Jets. You're not going to think about the Steelers. You're going to think about the Packers, the Super Bowl, all the MVPs, the NFC Championship games, the crazy Hail Marys. That is what the lasting legacy of his career is. When you think of Joe Montana, what team do you think of him on?
Not the Chiefs.
No. You think of him with the 49ers, because that's what his career was made of. Yeah, he went to different teams at the end of his career, but that doesn't define who he is or alter his legacy.
No. I've always said this. You don't remember Franco Harris as a Seahawk. You don't remember Emmitt Smith as a Cardinal.
No.
And I always thought you ruin. No, you don't ruin your. Muhammad Ali, by holding on when he probably should have, it doesn't ruin your legacy.
We don't like to see our heroes look weak. Right? Because when they go to the end and they're way past their prime and they don't look like they belong in the ring or the field or the court or whatever it may be, it humanizes them too much, I feel like. And to see somebody like him not be in the position to be the greatest boxer in the world anymore, I think hurts people that were fans of him watching him decline.
No, you nailed it. We as a group of fans in sports look at these people like, wow, look how special they are, right?
Yes.
They can do things us normal goofs can't do. Then all of a sudden, they become normal goofs like us. And you don't want to see that because the draw to them was their specialness, and now you're seeing them not be so special.
It was a money grab, so I'm not going to say it's the exact same thing, but the thing that Mike Tyson did with Jake Paul earlier this year, last year, whenever that was, if you're a fan of Mike Tyson watching him in that thing, it's sad, right? Because he's not clearly not the same guy that he was 20, 30 years ago. He's had health issues, had drug problems, and all those kind of things. But, like, if you're watching that, anticipating to him to be that same guy, you don't get that because he's several steps slower. Yeah, he can still knock you out if you wanted to, but in a competitive fight, he can't do what he used to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's knocking dudes out in The Hangover.
Yeah.
It's a little different deal.
A little different deal.
And to Mike Tyson, boy, what a segue. This day in 1988, the Mike Tyson took out Michael Spinks in 91 seconds in Atlantic City. I remember that fight as a young Terry Ford. Michael Spinks wanted no part of that fight.
Yeah. Is this his most famous fight, would you say?
When he destroyed Michael Spinks, possibly.
Yeah.
Because Tyson was such a wrecking machine. And he was, I mean, when you see boxers scared, that's what Tyson did when he was young and he was like at his best. Because, I mean, there was legitimate thought that he's going to kill somebody.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, he went in there like you thinking you might die if you fight him.
Because, A, he had thunder in those hands. B, he was very well coached by Cusimano. And C, he had the look of a guy that wanted to kill you.
Yes. And total package.
All that combined, you're like, Michael Spinks, I'll never forget it. You know, like Michael Spinks, they're in the ring, they ring the bell, and Michael Spinks, you got to get off the stool, Mike. Mike, you got to come out here, Mike. Come on, Mike. You're getting paid. Come on. Michael Spinks, and look, Michael Spinks was a champion.
Yeah.
And Michael Spinks wanted no part of that. That was the longest 91 seconds of Michael Spinks' life, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the ultimate problem. Like, that Mike Tyson, Jake Paul wouldn't even get near the ring, not even to watch a fight.
But by the way, don't you feel a little bit gypped if you paid for that pay-per-view and it lasted 91 seconds?
Oh, absolutely.
I know there's like prelim fights and stuff like that, but
still.
That's the main event that you paid $50 for.
You always got gypped if you got the short knockout like that, or if you got the one that went the distance but was boring.
Yeah.
They're not good either. I remember I watched De La Hoya and Bernard Hopkins, a buddy of mine paid for it, thank God. And styles make fights, and the two styles didn't match, and it was the most god-awful, boring fight ever.
Sure.
And you're sitting there going, wow, watch this. If I have trouble sleeping. But that was 1988, Mike Tyson knocking out Michael Spinks in 91 seconds. 1990, Syracuse power forward Derek Coleman is picked first by the New Jersey Nets. Look, Derek Coleman was one of the most skilled big men I ever saw. And Derek Coleman had a good NBA career, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But Derek Coleman could have been special. That's how physically gifted Derek Coleman was.
Yeah.
And skilled. And for whatever reason, maybe it was just Derek Coleman, maybe he didn't have that want to or drive or whatever it was. You look at Derek Coleman, you go, man, you were good in the NBA, but you could have been great.
Yeah.
Derek Coleman, I mean, very skilled human being. Let's see, 1992, top seeded Jim Courier, the Australian and French Open champion, loses to a qualifier at Wimbledon. First time in Wimbledon history a qualifier beat the top seed. And Jim Courier won multiple majors and at some point was the best tennis player in the world and got knocked out by a guy, Andre Olevitsky.
Sure.
And I probably butchered the hell out of that. But that was a huge thing when that happened back in 1992.
Yep.
1998 in the NHL draft, Vincent Lecavalier was the first pick by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Everybody thought this guy was going to be great and wonderful and awesome and fantastic, and he wasn't those things.
No.
But and he had a great last name.
Yeah, that's great.
Isn't that a cool last name?
Sounds like a hockey name.
Vincent Lecavalier. I like that one.
Can I throw you one real quick? Mm-hmm. 1999, Tony Hawk completes the first ever 900.
Now, I'm going to tell you what. In the world of X Games, this was a moment.
Yep.
Tony Hawk, I mean...
Because he's been trying for a long time.
Yeah. And I saw a documentary on
There
that.
is a documentary
That's how big of a deal it
is.
I watched it. I watched how many times he tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed and how much practice he put into it failing until he finally nailed it. And Tony Hawk is a god.
Yeah. Oh, to my generation with the video games and all that kind of stuff, like Tony Hawk is like S-tier hero to kids my age.
I'll leave you with this one. I am a Michael Jordan guy.
Okay.
I'm a Michael Jordan fan. I was sitting there watching The Last Dance the other day, again, just because I'm a goober for that. Michael Jordan, the front office guy, the owner, the GM.
Yeah.
Ugh. The evidence, this day in 2001, the Washington Wizards, with a front office run by Michael Jordan, instead of taking Pau Gasol, took the great Kwame Brown.
How'd that work out?
Yeah. That's the greatest day in the history of the world. Up next, we'll do the handoff with our buddy Jay Phillips for the postgame show sponsored by Little Pigs. And we'll do our Firehouse Sub text the hour at 803-404-6100. Halftime show. Wrap the sucker up next here on the game. All right, Firehouse sub text of the hour, and also we'll do our handoff with our bud Jay Phillips from the postgame show, sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine. What do you got there on the old Firehouse sub text line?
A nameless texter who is from Texas, apparently, reminds us that UTEP is also moving to the Mountain West next year.
Yep.
So by my count, next year, the state of Texas will have teams in 7 of the 10 FBS conferences.
They just don't have the Big Ten.
They don't have the MAC.
They don't have the MAC.
And they won't have the Sun Belt anymore because
Texas State goes off to
is going to go to the Pac-12.
To the Mountain Pack or the Pac Mountain or wherever we're calling
So within 25 and 26, they will have been in 8 of the 10 conferences.
How sick is that?
Yes.
I can't believe they're not in the MAC.
One state.
Why aren't they in the MAC, Jay?
Well, it's coming,
Wednesday
I'm sure.
night action. I do love me some action.
Well, see, like, I don't know, Incarnate Word will probably go FBS at some point. They'll need a conference.
Why not the MAC?
Yeah. The MAC is actually the one conference where no team has to travel more than 1,000 miles for a conference
It's the only
game.
conference that still truly make. I mean, Buffalo is the outlier,
Yeah, but even
right?
still, that's relatively
That's not
it's
bad.
It's on a Great Lake.
Right? It's
Yeah.
true. There you go.
So that is the one conference that still kind of stays true to what a conference means.
What do you mean the Big Ten?
Hey, the SEC. No, I like Greg Sankey's.
SEC's trying.
It's contiguous.
At least those states touch
It's
each other.
contiguous.
They touch
But
each other.
Are we pretending that Oklahoma's in the Southeast?
Did you guys hear the
Or
call we
Missouri?
had yesterday
No.
about Texas State and San Marcos?
I didn't hear
No.
this. No.
Okay, so the guy, it was a terrific call. I think his name, I can't remember his name, or Elijah. I think it was Brian, but if I'm wrong, I apologize. But it was a terrific call. I think it was Brian. And he said, hey, guys, I'm in the car, and I just thought of this. Can you help me out? It was a geography question. With Texas State now joining the Pac-12, is there a school in the Pac-12 that is east of the westernmost school, Oklahoma, in the Southeastern Conference? And we looked it up.
And
Norman is at like 97.26 degrees west. San Marcos was like 97.56.
Wow.
And I don't know how far that is. I don't know if that's like a mile,
Right.
Or I don't know distance.
That's
I don't know. I said I don't know cartography. But by whatever slimmest of margins, San Marcos, Texas is technically west of Norman. And by the way, College Station was at like 96 point something. So it's like a hop skip from San Marcos and down in that part of Texas. And that's where San Marcos is, down there in
right
San
in between
Antonio,
San
Austin
Antonio,
area.
Austin, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a pretty thin line, but yeah.
I mean, it can't be more. I'm serious. It can't be more than what, a couple of miles.
Yeah, it has to be.
It's not by much. I'll say that much.
But I mean, seriously, 97.26 and like 97.56.
That's where we're at, though.
But like
In the Southeastern Conference.
Elijah and I were like thrilled with that question because like immediately in the commercial break we were like, let's do. So we went.
Oh,
and
yeah, it's
looked
like
and
2
measured,
trains leave Chicago.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
you
was
got to
great.
be into that.
It was great. So,
But that's where we're at, though. That's the ridiculousness of all this,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I don't think this, if the Southeastern Conference is to expand again, and I don't know that it's gonna anytime soon. I think it's going to be
It'll
in
still be
our times.
touching.
It'll be in our time
Yeah, it'll still
zone.
be touching.
Yes,
North
But
Carolina and Virginia and those states.
Yeah,
it'll
it's
still
going to
be
be our.
touching.
It's going to be our time.
Absolutely. That's not going to change.
I guess. Well, is Tallahassee right on the other side? Where is Tallahassee Eastern? Or I know it's because I know part of the Panhandle.
Yeah, Tallahassee's right below Alabama.
But I know, it gets cut. I know a part of the I'm not sure where Tallahassee is in terms of where the Panhandle cuts, because like a section of the Panhandle is in the Central Time Zone.
Yeah, I
Right.
think they're in Central.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to confuse you.
But
even more.
and that's if FSU were to be one of them.
Yeah. Because Miami's
But I know where Clemson is. I know where Miami is. I know where Chapel Hill is.
It's all good.
Yeah.
All in Eastern
I know
time
where
zone.
Charlottesville is.
All right, what's coming up on the big shindig today?
David Cloninger coming up, and we have Top 5 Friday. You guys can participate.
Oh, what are you doing today?
All right, and with the Superman movie coming out soon, top 5 superhero films of all time. And your favorites. Your top 5 favorites.
Very nice. Post-game show's coming up. Kale, Ed, Tyler, nice work. Jay and Elijah are next here on the game.